Man, I am so excited. We're starting a brand new series called March Madness. Listen, I know I'm not the only one that loves filling out brackets in March for college basketball. Does anybody else love filling out those brackets? Like obsessively, like fill out 20 brackets? Anybody else in the room? Or is it literally just me? Are you kidding me? Nobody else fills out brackets? Like in the first service, nobody filled out brackets. Like, what is wrong with you people? This is a great way to be competitive and rub it in people's faces. Like, it is so much fun. Growing up in our house, one thing that we did is we would always, during March, college basketball season, for those of you that don't know, okay, March Madness is college basketball's tournament at the end of the year. 64 teams enter and one stands as the champion. And so we love as a family just going through and picking teams to see who's going to win, who's going to get upset, like, you know, all that stuff, and kind of watching them and following the scores and everything like that. And so growing up, we did that all the time. We filled out those brackets, and then we would just have fun, being competitive. We would always try and have some sort of good prize at the end. Well, now as a family, since I'm in charge now as a family, we do it at my house, and we love it. The problem is, I think for 4 years running, Heather has beat me. Here's the frustrating thing. She knows nothing about college basketball. Nothing. She could not tell you who is better, who is worse. She will pick the most random upsets ever. Like she will pick something like, the blue, grass, green, purple school over North Carolina, which should never happen, and she'll pick it and it'll happen. And it just frustrates me to no end because she always beats me. And so here's the thing, though. As we kind of start thinking through this series of March Madness, I think for a lot of us, we realize that our life is kind of madness right now. Like if you just think about it. Think about politically in your life right now. Politically in your life, when you get online, like it is nuts. And when you try to look at something, like it is crazy. For me, in my lifetime, politically, it's never been worse than it is. And I would argue that this is one of the worst time. I don't think the worst time. I remember the Civil War. That was kind of bad. But during my lifetime, and really as far back as I can remember, this is the worst I've ever seen it. In that, listen, there used to be able to be something called a conversation. You could have with people and you could be able to talk intelligently and walk away disagreeing, but being okay with the disagreement. Now you can't even do that. Like if you're on the other side, no matter which side it is, like you are hated. You won't even go to dinner with them. You won't even look at them. Like everything that they do now is tainted because they're on the wrong side of the aisle. And so that's just how it is right now politically. And there's just a madness that is going on, that is taking place. And it's crazy to think about. But maybe not even that. Maybe in your life right now, maybe it's madness financially. Think about it. In the history of the world, we have never seen bigger houses than we see today. Never. Have you ever driven around and wondered, where are all these people getting all this money to build these massive of houses? Like, I do not understand, like, how they are building. Like, I did not know that this many people had this much money. But did you know this, that we are building bigger houses than we've ever built before in our entire life, but yet have smaller families than we've ever had before? Bigger houses, smaller families. Did you know right now, if you want to get in a really, really good business, build storage units? Why? Because everybody's buying too much stuff, and they're throwing it in storage units. Even the bigger houses that we have can't hold all the stuff that we buy. Why? Because we continue to try and keep up with everybody. And so now what is rising? Higher than it's ever been in the history of the world is now our debt. Not just nationally as a nation, but personally for people. Debt has gone up higher and risen for an individual higher than it's ever been in the history of the world. To where now we owe more money than we have ever owed at this point in the history of our country. To where now what we do is we put plastic down and we agree to pay it at some future date, but the future date we don't know because that we just bought does not match the income that we're bringing in. And so there's a madness financially that is taking place because what do? We look around and we see everybody's got everything and we want to keep up. I got something new? I deserve something new. I'm going shopping. And we go to the mall and we buy new clothes and we buy some, you have a bad day at work, so what do? You go eat out and you go shopping to make you feel better. And then you put it on a credit card that it was already maxed out to begin with, and now you're in even more trouble. And so why? There's this madness and this cycle of madness that is going on, even in families. In families, there's this madness that is going on. Online, there's this madness that's going on, trying to keep up with friends and keep up with relationships. And if you look, everybody's online, posting everything, doing everything. Like I didn't know, I didn't want to know everybody doing everything and see, like, I just took a bite of bacon, it was so good, like, and you pose just right. You got to get the lighting just right and the angle just right. And you've got in your phone 97 pictures of you taking a bite of bacon, just trying to get it right because you want to impress all your friends and you want to make them think that you have the perfect life. Like, oh my goodness, my husband's so awesome. He cooked bacon, And then what they don't realize is that y'all were just screaming at each other and you're in two separate rooms not talking to each other, but you feel like because you took that bite of bacon, like you put it online, like everything's perfect, and now everybody's watching and they're like, oh my gosh, they have the best relationship ever. I wish ours was like that. And so then you start getting frustrated and angry and jealous because everything you see online is so perfect. And it's just this madness and this cycle of everything that continues to take place. And you see somebody standing there flexing on social media and showing their muscles, and you realize, like, I've got bigger muscles than them. Like Tyler, constantly flexing on social media, trying to post his muscles. But you see this stuff. I'm joking. He's been working out, okay? But you see all these things, and what you do is you immediately, like when I see that, I immediately jumped down and did 25 push-ups. I was like, all right, let's go. Hey, why? Because there's this madness. There's this cycle that is taking place in our lives. And so I want to read a scripture to you to kind of go along with that. It's where we've been reading in our Bible this week. And we find this verse, and it says this in Matthew 11, starting in 28. It says this, then Jesus said, come to me, all who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your soul. For my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light. See, maybe even in your schedule today, maybe your schedule is crazy. Maybe your schedule is madness. Think about it. I've got 4 kids. They're all in something. They're all playing some sort of sport. They're all doing some sort of extracurricular activity. So we take them to practice multiple times a week. Then we have multiple games each week. And then on top of that, they have friends, and so they have parties that they need to go to. Then on top of that, we have friends that we need to go see and that we need to hang out with. And then by the end of the week, we find ourselves absolutely run down and exhausted. Because we have been chasing everything. We have been chasing this schedule that we have to keep up. We've got to go here. We've got to do this. Ooh, we've got to be involved in this. We got to make sure my kids are probably going to make it to the NBA, the NFL, and the MLB. They'll be the first ones to be a three-sport professional athlete. I just see it in them. I know they're young, but I can see it. I know 1% makes it, but they are going to be that 1%. And so that's why we've got them in everything. They have to do it now. If I don't put them in, they'll be behind, and then they're going to be in trouble. But that's the thinking. The thinking is like, my kids are different. My kids can make it. My kids can do it. And so I've got to put them in all this. Or what we do is we start living our life through our kids. And what we weren't able to do, we then start doing through our kids. And what we weren't good at, we want to make them good at. And where we failed, we want to help them become the best. And so we start creating a schedule that we can't keep that is absolutely running us down. And so the first thing I want us to look at right here is just the exhaustion of life, the exhaustion that sets in. As we begin to think through this concept of madness, the first thing we see is exhaustion. And here's part of the problem with exhaustion. Part of the problem with exhaustion is that we're carrying way too many burdens around. What did Jesus say right there? He said, "Come, all you who are weary and carrying a heavy burden, and I'll give you rest." See, part of the problem in life is a lot of times we're picking up burdens that we were never meant to carry. And we're carrying things on our back that we were never meant to carry. And all of a sudden we've got this weight on our back and we're trying to go through life and we're trying to spend life doing what God's created us to do. But the problem is we've got things on our back that were never meant to be there. For some of you, some of those burdens that you're carrying around are the words that people have spoken to you. And so now when you're trying to play the game of life and you're trying to get in the game of life and you're trying to run down the court and you're trying to be all that you can be and you're trying to shoot and do everything and you're trying to play defense, you've got all these burdens that you're carrying around that you were never meant to carry. Because somebody spoke a word over you and now that word has sunk deep down into your soul, sunk deep down into your heart. And now every time you walk into a situation, you heard a word, you're not good enough. And so now when you go sit down and you're sitting down for a job interview and you feel like this is what you're supposed to do, this is the direction you're supposed to go, the problem is you've got that word and it's on your shoulder. And now as you're sitting there for the job interview, you hear you're not good enough. You can't do this. You'll never be good at this. Nobody wants you here. Nobody cares about you. Nobody cares that you're carrying a burden that you were never meant to carry. And this burden is beginning to weigh you down in life. And this burden is beginning to be too heavy for you. And this burden is beginning to give you exhaustion and make you exhausted in a way that you have never felt before. And you don't know how you can continue to go in life because everything that you see and everything that you do has this burden around your shoulder. And it's got this weight that you're carrying. But maybe not, it's just a word that somebody's spoken. Maybe it's something that somebody did to you. Maybe you trusted somebody. And you trusted them in a way where you trusted them with something in confidence. And they shared it. And now everybody that you come into a relationship with, you're worried. I trusted them. Maybe it was somebody you dated in high school that you feel like you fell in love with. And you loved them and you trusted them with some stuff. And as you trusted them with that stuff, all of a sudden you realize that wasn't the one for me. And that trust was broken. And now you take it into every relationship that you're in. And as you're running down the court and down the life and down the court of relationships, all of a sudden you've got these heavy burdens that are weighing you down. And in your relationship right now, you can't be all that you're supposed to be because of the burden that you're carrying. Because of the lack of trust, not that your spouse did, but that somebody did to you earlier. And it's weighing you down and you're trying to go through life and you're trying to play and you're running up and down the court and you are just becoming absolutely and totally exhausted because you're carrying burdens that you were never meant to carry. Because you've got things on your back, because you've got things on your heart that you were never meant to carry. See, maybe you trusted somebody that you should have never trusted. Maybe it's something that the enemy's done where the enemy lied to you. And when the enemy lied to you, you felt like God's calling me in a direction. Maybe it's something you failed at. Maybe all of a sudden you've got something that God's placed on your heart that He wants you to do, but you can't walk in it because you're afraid of being a failure. And early on in life, things didn't go the way that you thought they should. And so now you have a fear of failure in everything that you do. Can I be honest with you and be a little vulnerable with you? I was not very good at school. That was not my strong suit. I made good enough grades to be able to play sports. That's what I did. But I was not a 4.0 student. I graduated high school with like a 2.9, almost a B average. I graduated college and I worked hard. Now granted, the curve in college was really, really hard. An A was a 94 and above. A B was an 88 and above. A C was an 82. And then anything below the C, they didn't pass you at the school I went to. And I graduated college with a 3.3 grade point average, and I worked my tail off in order to be able to do that. But I wasn't good at that. And did you know it still haunts me today? Did you know that burden of not being good and a fear of failure still follows me today? Did you know in order to stand up here every single week, I write somewhere around a 10-page paper every single day, every single week, a research paper, studying what these verses mean, studying in order to be prepared? Where I'm weak in my fear of failure is what God chose to use me in. I can sling a football. You want to go throw a football, I'll sling it anywhere. But standing up here and speaking and doing the research that it takes, this is the burden that I carry every single week. And I put it on my shoulder, and as I stand up here, man, there's a fear inside of me. You're going to say something wrong. You're going to do something wrong, you dummy. You're not smart enough to be up there. You're not smart enough to lead these people. You don't know enough. You didn't make good enough grades. And now all of a sudden this burden begins to weigh me down as every time I'm trying to dribble through life and every time I'm trying to come do what God told me to do, I've got these burdens that are making me absolutely exhausted. Did you know there's 3 areas of exhaustion in our life? There's emotional, there's physical, and there's spiritual. There's 3 areas where you can become exhausted in life. Emotional, carrying burdens and baggage of other people that you were never meant to carry. Physical, where you have a job that just you have to labor and work yourself to death. Spiritual, where you are weighing and spiritually carrying the burden of somebody else. You're praying for somebody to get saved. You're praying for marriages to work out. You're praying for things to happen. And all of a sudden, those things begin to weigh on you, and you find yourself where you are becoming useless in what God has called you to because you are so worn out and exhausted from carrying burdens that you were never meant to carry, from carrying things on you that you were never meant to have on your back. And so what do? When we're in the game, and when the burdens are heavy, and when we're carrying things that we're not supposed to carry, what do we have to do? Time out. Come here. Come sit down. We've got to find rest. See, the problem is we view rest wrong. The problem is we view rest negatively. The problem is we view rest as us being able not to carry what God has entrusted us with, as us being a failure. That's the way we view it. Even think back to basketball as we're on the court. What is rest? You're on the court, you're playing defense, you're down, you're over here on offense, you're trying to shoot and make shots, and you're running back up and down the court, and then you start getting tired. And when you start getting tired and worn down, what begins to happen? Your legs get a little heavier. They stop moving as fast. So now what's happening? The people that you're guarding, what you're supposed to be doing, the job that you have in front of you, now all of a sudden you're not able to do it. Because now your feet don't move as fast, and all of a sudden they're going around you and they're shooting layups. Why? Because you're tired. In high school, I hated sitting out. Because I always feared what would happen while I sat there. That the other guy coming in after me was going to do a better job. I want to sit down. But what I realize is this. If I don't take rest, then I'm not helping my team, I'm hurting my team. If you don't take the rest that you need, here's what happens. Your team begins to take the brunt of the hurt. Your family, your closest friends, your marriage, your kids. What happens when you're tired? The way you used to respond changes, doesn't it? When you're too tired, you're coming in the house, and now what's something that's little and not a big deal, all of a sudden becomes something massive. Wait, that is a Lego right there, not a bunch of one. Who left the Lego out? Why is the Lego? I cannot believe the Lego has been left out. What is going on? The house is falling apart. Are you kidding me? If we let this happen, if we let this go on, everything's going to crumble around us. Pick up the Lego right now. That's how it gets. Think about it, though. When you get exhausted, what happens? You begin to take out your anger in the wrong places at the wrong time. Because when you're not exhausted and you walk in, you're like, oh, Lego. You bend down, you pick it up, and you go put it up. But then when you're exhausted, you give the wrong response to the ones that you love the most. You end up hurting your team. See what happens on the court. You're on the court, and you're exhausted. And all of a sudden, you begin hurting your team. So what do? Time out. Come here. Johnny, have a seat. What happens on the bench? Perspective. Rest. All of a sudden, you see the game in a different light. You see the game through different eyes. Because when you're out here and you're not resting, all of a sudden you're guarding this person, you're running down here, it's man, it's zone, I got to shoot this shot, I've got to go here. And all of a sudden you're running up and down the court and you're chasing everybody. But then when you're over here sitting on the bench, all of a sudden the game slows down. And all of a sudden the life that you were running back and forth with, the life that you were chasing, the life that you were going after, all of a sudden begins to slow down for you. And you're able to see, oh, I see where I screwed up. I see where I've taken a wrong step. I see where I've gone in the wrong direction. I see I should have made a pass over there, and I didn't because this is what they're doing when we're in this. I should have done this differently. And all of a sudden, you're able to see when you rest. See, rest, you have to understand, is not a negative thing. It's a positive thing. See, rest was never meant to keep you out of the game. Rest was meant to get you back in the game. See, rest was never meant to keep you on the bench. It's actually to make you the best that you can possibly be, because it's in the rest where you find your best finish. If you don't rest, you won't finish well. See, if you don't take time to rest, then the end of the game, you're not going to be able to give your best. And so you have to rest in order to be able to give your best. And so God calls you over and He sits you down and He says, rest. See, you've got to find those moments in your life of rest. Where's your rest at? Where's your time of refreshment? Where's your time to just put your brakes on everything, on the madness of life that is taking place, and just go, okay, breathe. For me, it's either I call the coach, hey, I need a break, or God sits me down. Just a couple weeks ago, what ends up happening for me, my job is not a physical job. And so I'm not running around, just wearing myself out every single day. Spiritually and emotionally, it'll drain you. And I was going and going and going and going. And I woke up one morning, Sunday morning, getting ready to preach, and I was dizzy. And I could not stand up. I could not do anything. Just could not get rid of it. And so when that happens, I have to just basically take pills, knock me out, and sleep it off. And it's basically God's way of just saying, Johnny, if you're not going to rest, I'm going to make you. See, for some of you, God's calling you to rest. Hey, it's time to take a break. Sit down. Rest. Because if you don't rest, you cannot give your best. And so you have to rest. Because God's desire is not for you right now to finish well, because it's not over. And some of your best efforts are in the middle of the game because you can't give your best efforts at the end of the game. And so God is calling you to sit on the bench and just to say, take a break and rest. Rest. Slow down. And it's in that rest where you find what He's calling you to, His plan. Because what does God do? The coach comes over when you're sitting on the bench, he puts his arm around you, and he says, hey, listen, I know you missed a shot, but it's okay. I still believe in you. When you get back out there on the court, I don't want you to stop shooting. Man, I want you to pull the trigger. I want you to shoot like you've never shot before. Like go guns a-blazing out there. I believe in you. They're going to start falling. What's Jesus doing? He's putting his arm around you and he's looking at you and he's saying, you may have made some mistakes in the past, but here's the thing. Your best days are in front of you. Listen, your greatest moments are in front of you. You've got to believe that these next shots are going in. You've got to believe that these next moments are going to be the greatest moments of your life. And he is sitting on the bench next to you, just like a coach in a game, putting his arm around you, saying, I believe in you. I know you can. Greatness is right in front of you. You can do this. But then what does he also do? He talks about the plan. Hey, when you were out there, man, you were right over here. I called a play, but you ignored the play and you went on your own. What you have to understand is he's not sitting on the bench thinking of new plays. He's sitting on the bench reiterating the play that he already has for you. Because the Bible says, I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future. See, God has plans for you. The problem is sometimes we get out on the court and we begin doing our own thing. We start living life and we start playing our own game. And so it's in the rest that we're able to recognize and realize that I have to get refocused not on my plans and my agenda, but on God's plans and God's agenda. And it's only on the bench and in the rest that we're able to recognize that. And so we have to recognize the plan that God has for us, the purpose that God has for us, and what God desires to do in our life. And that sometimes we make our own decisions and God brings us over to the side and says, hold on, sit down. Hey, you're running your own plays out there. You got to get back on track. You got to start running the plans that I've created for you. You've got to start being out there with the purpose that I've put you on the court for. And you've got to go after His plan for your life. And it's only in rest that you can find that. For me, the rest is every single morning. It's every single morning, my time with God in the Word, no distractions. It's rest. Because I'm up, there's no kids screaming and yelling, there's no TV, there's no music going, there's no nothing. It is the Word of God and it is me. And that's where He gives me the plan and He puts me, He sits me on the bench and He says, Johnny, yesterday, you ran a couple of your own plays. Let's run mine. And He gives me what I need in order to get back out on the court. And then what does He do? Coach pats me on the back. Says, get back in the game. Let's go. It's time. Finish well. See, some of you, you're hanging out on the bench too long. Some of you are just playing on the bench. And you're just hanging out right over there and you're fine with it. Like, I'm fine. At least I'm on the team. You know what I mean? At least I got the jersey. And so that's the best thing. I got the jersey, so I'm good. Like, let's just watch them do all the hard work. Woo! Give me some water. And you're squirting some water in your mouth. You're sitting on the bench not doing anything. And God keeps tapping you on the back. Johnny, get in the game. Not yet, coach, in a minute. Johnny, I need you. It's your time. Hold on. I just need another drink. Johnny, let's go. Hold in a minute. See, some of you are hanging out on the bench too long. And you're watching everybody else fulfill what God's called you to fulfill and do what God's called you to do. See, when God created you, He created you uniquely. And He created you individually. God didn't have just a big stamp machine where He was stamping humans together and sending them out. No, He spent time thinking through you. And He created you to be on the court. And so now it's your time to step back into the game and to finish well. To finish well. What does a good game look like? Winning? What does winning look like? Being obedient to follow the Word of God and follow the plan that God has given you. That's winning. You will not lose when you follow God and you follow His plan. His plan is unbeatable if you will just step on the court and execute what He's created you for. But some of you keep sitting on the bench looking at everybody else. At least I'm on the team. At least I'm here. I'm in the gym. Look at the spotlight. Look at everything. Like, we made it to the big arena. Yes, at least I'm here. I'm not stepping on the court, but I'm here. And God's saying, I want to throw you the ball. And I want you to do something. Listen, today, My encouragement for you is this: find rest so that you can finish well. Listen, without rest, you cannot be your best. And so you have to find that rest so that you can finish well and finish what God has created you for. Don't come out here and create your own plan. God has a plan for you. Just execute it. Would you pray with me?